but I will return like an angry Jesus, raining down blood and filth and terror.
Classic Jesus. You mess with his money, he f***s you right up.
Hey gang, I'm JP and welcome back to Egotastic FunTime. One thing I can tell you about HBO's new sci-fi comedy is that what happens on Avenue 5 stays on Avenue 5. I just watched the second episode of this Hugh Laurie inconveniently delayed in space sci-fi series and now know a little bit more of what this show is going for.
Zombies!
Now, before the series premiered last week, people were saying Avenue 5 is just trying to be a clone of the Orville, but as we learned in my last review, that's not true at all. It was just the internet doing what the internet does best, pouring out cries of deeply negative opinions about stuff it hasn't watched yet. Good job, society!
Let's go live to Avenue 5. I see a warning light.
The first two episodes are a pretty good start for this new series that takes a look at the very near future where the world is just like it is now, except that luxury liner space cruises are actually a thing that exists. The show takes place 40 years from now and people are pretty much exactly the same. The Avenue 5 itself is basically a high-end VIP lifestyle carnival cruise that was supposed to take a bunch of rich buttholes on a 2-month voyage to Saturn and back, but due to a brief glitch with the artificial gravity system, the ship gets thrown off course and now the trip is supposed to last over 3 years. Kind of like Gilligan's Island meets The Love Boat in space. And according to the show's creator, Armando Iannucci, who's also the creator of Veep, among other hit comedies, and who turns out to be a huge sci-fi fan, which is pretty cool, his goal for Avenue 5 was to be more of a comedic cross between Battlestar Galactica and Galaxy Quest, with a huge ship of 5,000 people out in space, unable to get home, and the crew in charge of the situation are completely incompetent frauds.
No more will we be treated like cattle, if anyone can remember them.
My grandfather ran a dairy farm.
Hey!
In this episode, the point is further driven home that the ship, Avenue 5, is a lie. It's a facade to look nice, but it's not necessarily safe, and the entire crew is comprised of characters that are deeply flawed in some way or another. This episode picks up right where the last one left off, with Captain Clark going to give the bad news to the passengers about the change in their travel plans.
Yeah, look, that is what I heard.
Okay.
We're all gonna die in space!
I'm gonna just get rid of that because it does look a little bit stark.
Captain Clark, as it turns out, is actually just an actor who was hired to play the role of Captain on Avenue 5 to help passengers feel like they are in good hands because the ship pretty much runs on autopilot. The real ship captain, Joe, was killed last week during the accident that sent Avenue 5 off course, and from what I can tell, Joe was the only competent officer on board the ship. Everyone else is scrambling to figure out what to do. So far, the only person who seems somewhat sane on the show is the ship's engineer and hopefully my future girlfriend, Billy. But yeah, she's also kind of got some flaws.
So basically, we have missed our turning, okay? So now we're stuck going the long way around. Is that simple enough for you guys, or should I go and get some crayons, draw this crap on the walls?
At this point, I'm loving Avenue 5. A big part of the show that interests me personally is seeing social order break down as the situation gets more and more desperate each week, with the crew trying to keep this situation under control and totally failing at it. Other people's failures make me feel better about my own life. My stupid, stupid life. Just like with the first episode though, the pacing is sometimes a bit uneven, and I think some of the humor could be tightened up a little. There was even this one joke in the episode that they completely reused almost word for word from the previous episode.
What are NASA saying? Is NASA saying?
Is it or are?
Is.
What is they saying?
Just like with the last episode, I'm still totally confused with the guest relations specialist, Matt. I mean, I can't tell if he's just mentally ill, a douchebag, or a simpleton who freaks out when baby gets put in a corner. I mean, maybe he's all three?
There's a starman waiting in the sky.
I just feel this character's volatile nature was just turned up to 11 way too early in the season. The situation on the ship isn't even really that bad yet, so I don't know where he's going to be able to go with this character as things ramp up.
You have gone above and beyond.
It's not a problem, it's fine.
Happy to hear any concerns.
I also saw that the internet was complaining about Hugh Laurie once again being forced to play an American in a series. Typical Hollywood, trying to keep the UK down by assuming people have the time to actually know about the things that they're complaining about online.
What is the matter with you people? Are you Australian?
I'm English. What the fuck? I'm not a captain either.
Are you an admiral?
Joe is the real captain of the ship.
Just like Captain Clark isn't really a captain, he's also not really a Yankee, you guys. Hugh Laurie's a British actor playing on the show a British actor who's playing an American cruise ship captain.
Don't you ever talk to me like that again, unless you do it in proper English, which is American.
I can't do this much longer.
From what I can tell, it seems like every episode of Avenue 5 is destined to have yet another thing go terribly, terribly wrong. And I'm guessing that this beautiful, luxurious space cruiser will eventually become a hellscape of mass hysteria as we find out what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real. The real world, Avenue 5. In this episode, the big thing that goes wrong is that due to the accidental gravity change, there was a few casualties aboard Avenue 5 in the last episode, most notably the real captain of the ship, Joe.
There was no one like you, Joe. And now, there definitely isn't.
Herman Judd, taking a very short break from worrying about how much this disaster is going to cost his shareholders, donates his personal coffin that apparently is always taken with him wherever they go, just in case, you know, it's always good to be prepared. He donates it to Joe's funeral.
Why isn't he leaving us?
Well, I told you.
You didn't tell me this was gonna happen.
But being that Avenue 5 is so massive, it has its own gravitational pull. So Joe's 800-pound solid gold coffin ends up becoming a moon that will be orbiting around the ship every hour for the duration of their journey instead of just floating off into space like they thought it would.
Get him away from my ship. Does my coffin have rockets or self-destruct?
To add insult to injury, when they use much lighter coffins to send 3 dead passengers off into the great unknown, another gravity glitch hits the ship and the dead just get pulled into Joe's orbit. Back home at Judd Ground Control, Rav tries to bring in help from NASA to see if they can assist in trying to save Avenue 5 and bring everyone back sooner. But they find out any type of rescue attempt is gonna be kind of pricey.
Is that the figure or a phone number we call to get the figure?
I really like the cuts of what's going on back at Earth because to me it helps keep the show grounded in reality. And I'm sure the pressure Rav is under to keep the company from completely going bankrupt is going to lead her to having a complete breakdown. I like watching people go insane. Then when a random crew member claims that he can get them back in 6 months, even though he definitely can't because he's obviously an idiot, Judd gains the confidence to respectfully decline NASA's help.
We solved the issue on our own. Back in 6 months. Suck on that, NASA! Stupid assholes!
Oh.
Avenue 5 is a comedy of errors that so far keeps surprising me with fun twists and turns, and I love how nothing is ever good enough for anyone on the ship. The passengers are jerks. The crew is incompetent. The owner of the ship, Herman Judd, has his name branded on absolutely everything. Even the black armbands worn during the funeral scene has his initials on it. And I'm pretty sure those handlebars aren't connected to anything. As a Star Trek fan, it's nice to see Ethan Phillips return to play a retired astronaut who's just trying to make some new friends on the cruise and share some of his space expertise pertaining to this situation.
Been a long day. Let's say we grab a drink, let our hair down?
I'm not impressed by your space career.
So far with these first 2 episodes, for the most part, I'm really enjoying the journey and I can't wait to see what mess these characters are heading toward. I mean, I've always been partial to comedies where a couple of mostly sane people try to navigate through a town of weirdos like Parks and Recreation or Superstore. This time, the entire town of weirdos are rich, entitled mouth breathers lost in space on a voyage of the damned. It's a mix of British and American humor wrapped up in a sci-fi burrito with a side of irony salsa. What do you think of Avenue 5 so far? Are you excited to see just how worse things are going to get for everyone on board? Or is it just not your cup of tea, Earl Grey hot? If you haven't watched Avenue 5 yet, make sure you describe in great detail why this show is a complete dumpster fire and should be canceled immediately by joining the conversation below. I'll see you very soon, and as always, I hope all your times are egotastic fun times. Love you, bye-bye.
Egotastic fun time, we're gonna have a great time. Egotastic fun time, give me all your money. Give him all your money. You will find it funny. Just give me money. I love money. Give me all your 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 money.